Long ago, in a land where the first cities once rose, pieces of clay were shaped and set aside. For thousands of years they have remained there, holding marks made by careful hands. The people behind them were the Sumerians, the first to turn thoughts into written words. What makes these tablets remarkable isn't just their age, but what they contain. The earliest messages ever written weren't simple notes or lists. They carried stories and ideas that still echo today. Once you hear what those first words reveal, they tend to stay with you. They're about beings called the Anunnaki, powerful beings who came to Earth, lived among humans, and then one day decided to leave. But they didn't just vanish. According to these texts, they prepared. They made arrangements. They left instructions behind. Long before anyone wrote about gods ascending to heaven or returning to the stars, these old texts describe something more deliberate. They suggest the Anunnaki knew they were leaving, that they planned for it, that they set things in motion so the world could continue without them. What if departure wasn't sudden? What if it was carefully organised? Tonight we're going to look at what these texts actually say about how the Anunnaki got ready to leave, what they did in those final days and what they left behind for humanity. Welcome, I'm glad you're here. Where are you right now? In bed with the lights dimmed? On the couch as the house goes quiet around you? What time is it where you are? Evening as you're winding down? Or the middle of the night when sleep won't quite come? Wherever you are, just notice your breathing for a moment. You don't have to change anything. Just feel the air moving in and out. Your body knows how to do this, how to settle, how to prepare for rest. Close your eyes if you want to. Feel how your body is resting right now. The bed or couch or chair holding you up, your shoulders, your back, your legs. Everything supported, nothing you need to do. Here's what makes this story so interesting. The tablets don't describe the Anunnaki just disappearing one day. They describe preparations, meetings among the divine council, discussions about what would happen to humanity after they left. According to these texts, the Anunnaki appointed kings. They established laws. They taught certain skills and left knowledge behind. Some tablets suggest they created systems of governance that could function without their direct presence. They were getting ready to step back. Now, people who study these things see it differently. Most experts think these are transition myths, stories that explained how ancient Mesopotamian religion evolved over time. Perhaps the shift from gods who supposedly walked among people to more distant, abstract deities. Maybe these stories justified why priests and kings held power by claiming they'd been appointed by departing gods. That makes sense. Cultures often tell stories to explain social changes and give legitimacy to leaders. But some researchers read these tablets and see something else. They notice the practical details, the way the texts describe transferring authority and knowledge almost like a handover process. They point to references of celestial boats being prepared, of the Anunnaki gathering their belongings, of final ceremonies and farewells, and they wonder, what if the Sumerians were documenting something real? What if there was an actual departure that required preparation? Tonight we'll explore both possibilities. We'll look at what the tablets say about these preparations, about what was left behind, about how the world changed after the Anunnaki withdrew. We'll go slowly, the way you'd carefully examine something ancient and mysterious. Gently, thoughtfully, curious. If you're enjoying this, it would mean a lot if you'd like the video and subscribe. It helps these stories reach other people, and it lets me keep making them. Now let everything else fade. Your breathing is slowing down naturally. Your thoughts are drifting. We have time, plenty of time to explore this mystery together, to think about what it means when gods prepare to leave, to wonder what the Sumerians were trying to preserve. The tablets have waited thousands of years. They can wait a bit longer while you get comfortable. Ready? Let's begin. Long before stories speak of arrival or departure, the Earth exists in deep patience. Wind moves across open plains without meeting walls. Rivers follow paths shaped slowly by stone and time. The air carries the scent of water and soil. When you imagine standing here, there is nothing directing movement. Life responds only to climate and season. Silence feels wide rather than empty. This world does not anticipate change. It simply continues. Mountains rise gradually. Valleys soften. The planet breathes at a pace far slower than thought. Nothing prepares, nothing waits, everything unfolds. When the climate shifts, it does so, without intention. Ice advances, then retreats over ages. Rain patterns alter gently. Forests migrate almost invisibly. Animals adapt through movement rather than planning. Human groups remain small and fluid. They follow water and food instinctively. Birth and loss respond directly to environment. Population never grows beyond what the land allows. There is no memory of abundance yet. No storage, no permanence. Survival feels immediate and honest. Hunger teaches limits quickly. Recovery follows when conditions soften. Balance exists without explanation. The earth regulates quietly through patience and repetition. Stars watch all of this without interruption. The same sky spans millennia unchanged. Night arrives fully dark. Firelight flickers briefly then fades. Humans look upward often. Not for guidance, but for wonder. The sky offers no instruction, yet it provides comfort through consistency. Seasons repeat beneath it. Time feels circular rather than linear. When elders speak of past, years they speak of weather and movement. There are no gods directing outcome yet. There are no overseers, only patterns, only return. The universe feels large and distant. Human life feels small but complete within that space. Perhaps this is why later memories imagine guidance arriving from above. When balance is lost, people remember a time when it existed effortlessly. The forgotten world holds that memory faintly. In this age, there is no preparation for departure, because no one has arrived. There is no hierarchy beyond age and experience. Authority rests in observation. Those who remember past seasons guide movement. Knowledge remains practical. No rule extends beyond necessity. The land sets boundaries clearly. When resources thin, groups separate. When abundance returns, gatherings form briefly. Nothing lingers beyond usefulness. Change feels natural rather than threatening. When you imagine walking through this landscape, your senses remain alert. Wind carries distant sounds, clearly. Footsteps leave, impressions that vanish quickly. Smell guides choice. Water attracts instinctively. Temperature dictates rest and movement. These cues regulate behaviour more effectively than instruction. Population remains aligned with capacity. Children survive when conditions allow. Loss arrives without judgment when they do not. There is grief, but not confusion. The cause feels visible. Survival and death feel connected to environment directly. There is no need to explain imbalance. The earth explains itself continuously through experience and repetition. Long before memory hardens into story, this world teaches humility. Humans adapt because they must. They do not imagine mastering land. They learn its moods. Shelter remains temporary, movement remains possible. Nothing demands permanence. The idea of preparing for the future does not exist beyond the season. Hope remains flexible. Fear remains brief. Life unfolds within limits that are felt immediately. This immediacy keeps numbers small. It keeps desire aligned with survival. It keeps ambition quiet. Balance is not a goal. It is a condition, one that requires no guardian beyond the planet itself. Stars continue their slow paths overhead. They mark time without ownership. Humans notice repetition and begin to expect it. But expectation remains loose. No calendar fixes behaviour. No ritual enforces timing. Birth follows circumstance. Intimacy follows closeness. Loss follows scarcity. Everything responds rather than commands. This responsiveness defines the forgotten world. It is reactive rather than planned, and because of that it rarely exceeds its limits. There is no pressure to grow, no incentive to accumulate. Life feels sufficient. When change comes, it arrives gradually. Nothing breaks suddenly. Nothing needs repair. Perhaps later generations remember this age as innocence, not because it lacked hardship, but because it lacked control. No system mediated between humans and environment. Experience taught everything. This directness leaves little room for abstraction. When storms arrive, shelters improve. When drought extends, movement resumes. Solutions remain temporary. Knowledge stays mobile. There is no centre, no margin. Everyone exists within the same exposure. Equality emerges not by design, but by shared vulnerability. Population control happens naturally through consequence. The idea of regulating growth intentionally has no meaning yet. Growth remains self-correcting through environment alone. Silence plays a different role here. It is not absence, it is presence. Night quiet deepens awareness. Sound travels far. Stillness encourages listening. People notice small changes. Insect rhythm, wind direction, cloud movement. These observations guide behaviour gently. Nothing distracts. Nothing overwhelms. The pace remains slow. Even fear moves through quickly. Without dense population, anxiety dissipates easily. Conflict remains limited. There is room to move away. Space absorbs. Tension. Balance persists because density never overwhelms capacity. The land breathes freely. Humans breathe with it. Nothing presses inward. Nothing demands expansion. When we look back from later ages, this world appears simple. It is not. It is precise. It requires constant attention. Survival depends on reading subtle signals accurately. Mistakes cost quickly. Success rewards briefly. This feedback loop keeps behaviour adaptive. No memory buffers consequence. No authority delays correction. Population remains responsive rather than ambitious. The forgotten world is not paradise. It is equilibrium. An equilibrium leaves little trace. Archaeology finds few monuments, few permanent marks. Movement erases itself. Memory remains oral and fluid. This absence later invites imagination. Gaps fill with story when permanence appears. Perhaps this is why arrival myths feel powerful. When permanence replaces movement, something essential is lost. Stability invites density. Density invites delay. Delay invites misalignment. The forgotten world avoids this because nothing lasts long enough to accumulate strain. Preparation for departure makes no sense here. There is nothing to leave behind, nothing centralized, nothing owned collectively. The earth remains steward. Humans remain guests. The idea of gods walking among people would feel unnecessary. Authority already exists everywhere, in weather, in hunger, in recovery. Control feels immediate and unquestioned. Balance belongs to Earth alone. Stars continue witnessing this age without pause. They watch migrations repeat. They watch camps form then fade. They watch generations appear and vanish. Cosmic time envelops human time gently. No disruption stands out. This continuity creates a baseline later cultures remember faintly. A time when limits felt natural, when life felt responsive rather than managed. This memory becomes a reference point. When complexity grows and imbalance appears, people look backward unconsciously. They imagine guidance existed once, that someone knew how to keep harmony. The forgotten world does not speak, but it leaves a feeling, a sense of lost ease. As this section closes, the stage is fully set. A planet capable of balance without intervention. A humanity living within immediate limits. No systems yet exist to preserve order beyond environment itself. But this balance depends on movement and patience. It cannot survive density and permanence. When humans settle longer, when memory thickens, when storage delays consequence, something must replace environmental regulation. That replacement will feel like guidance. It will feel intentional. It will feel external. In the next movement, we will watch that transition begin. When permanence arrives, when systems form, and when preparation for departure first becomes imaginable. The land feels subtly different now. Wind still moves freely, yet it meets resistance more often. Paths appear where feet pass repeatedly. Grass flattens and does not recover as quickly. When you imagine standing here, you sense presence accumulating, not crowding, just remaining. Time begins to leave marks. Long before cities rise, humans start staying longer in favoured places. Water returns reliably. Soil supports repeated planting. Animals follow predictable routes. Camps return season after season. Temporary shelters become sturdier. Stones are placed with intention. Movement slows without stopping completely. Perhaps this slowing marks the first quiet shift. When people remain, they remember more. Memory stretches beyond the last journey. Elders speak of previous years spent in the same place. Comparison enters language. This season was better, that one harsher. Expectation forms gently. When expectation forms, planning follows. Food is gathered slightly beyond immediate need. Tools are kept rather than discarded. Storage appears in small ways. Pits lined carefully. Baskets woven sturdier. These acts feel minor, yet they change. Relationship with time. Population responds. Children survive more often. Birth no longer depends entirely on chance. Groups grow gradually. Density increases almost unnoticed. The land still provides. Feedback remains present, but slower. Consequence delays. Stars continue watching as always. The same sky arches overhead. But humans begin noticing patterns more deliberately. Certain stars rise when rains arrive. Others when heat returns. Observation deepens. Knowledge accumulates. Perhaps this is where regulation begins subtly. Not imposed, but inferred. When births increase after good seasons, people notice. When scarcity follows growth, memory connects events. Cause and effect feel learned rather than immediate. Silence changes character. Nights are no longer empty spaces between movements. They become shared pauses. Fires burn longer. Conversation lingers. Plans are discussed quietly. The future enters thought. When groups stay longer, they encounter new challenges. Waste accumulates. Disease spreads more easily. Conflict intensifies. These problems require coordination. Decisions affect more people. Authority begins forming naturally around experience. Archaeological traces from this period thicken. More tools, more hearths, more debris. Evidence of repeated occupation appears clearly, yet structures remain modest. Permanence exists, but lightly. Perhaps this light permanence feels safe. It offers comfort without confinement. People can still move if needed. Flexibility remains. Balance holds. Population growth remains moderate. The land still corrects excess eventually. But correction feels harsher now. Loss affects more people at once. Recovery takes longer. The cost of miscalculation increases. Stars still offer steady reference. Their cycles feel reliable. The Earth's responses feel more complex. Humans begin interpreting rather than reacting. When you imagine walking through such a settlement, you notice familiarity. Paths feel known. Smells linger. Sound reflects off simple walls. These sensory cues create attachment. Leaving becomes harder. Perhaps attachment is the true beginning of control. When movement becomes costly, choice narrows. Staying requires management. Growth must be considered. Storage extends time artificially. Food saved today feeds tomorrow. This buffer allows population to exceed immediate capacity briefly. Growth accelerates slightly. Risk increases. Silence carries weight differently now. Absence of sound suggests vulnerability rather than peace. Stillness invites thought. Thought invites worry. Elders begin advising more deliberately. Their words carry influence. Memory becomes authority. Decisions affect future more visibly. Responsibility expands. Some scholars believe this phase marks origin of social regulation. Others see it as natural adaptation. Both perspectives may be true. Systems emerge because they are needed. Unanswered questions remain. Did people sense the shift clearly? Did they mourn lost freedom? Archaeology cannot tell. It records outcome, not feeling. Stars remain indifferent to these changes. Cosmic time continues flowing. Human time thickens beneath it. Perhaps this thickening creates pressure. When more lives depend on one place, stakes rise. Balance must be protected intentionally. As permanence increases, so does anxiety about loss. The land no longer feels endlessly forgiving. People seek assurance. They seek patterns. They seek meaning. This search does not yet name gods, but it prepares ground. When environment no longer regulates immediately, something else must fill that role. The forgotten world fades gradually, not through collapse, but through accumulation. Presence builds, memory hardens, movement slows. As this section closes, we sense threshold approaching. Humans have not yet built cities, but they have begun staying. They have begun planning. They have begun counting time differently. In the next movement, we'll see how this permanence solidifies, how memory turns into record, and how balance begins shifting from Earth toward human systems. Quietly, inevitably. The land carries weight differently now. Footsteps remain visible longer. Paths deepen through repetition. Grass does not recover as quickly as it once did. When you imagine standing here, you sense accumulation rather than passage. Time lingers. Presence presses gently into soil and stone. The world begins holding memory. Long before formal cities rise, people return to the same places repeatedly. Shelters are repaired instead of abandoned. Hearths are rebuilt in familiar positions. Storage pits reopen each season. These acts feel practical rather than symbolic. Yet they anchor life in place. Movement slows. Staying becomes default. Perhaps this is the quiet turning point. When people remain, memory thickens. Experience extends beyond immediate moment. Elders recall multiple years spent on the same ground. Comparison enters language naturally. This season was better, that one harsher. Expectation forms. Expectation alters behaviour. When expectation exists, planning follows. Food is gathered beyond immediate hunger. Tools are kept rather than discarded. Materials are shaped for durability. Storage becomes central. Time stretches artificially. Consequence delays. Population responds to this delay. Children survive more often. Birth no longer depends entirely on chance. Groups grow slowly but steadily. Density increases almost unnoticed. The land still provides, but its corrections arrive later. When they arrive, they affect more people. Stars remain constant above. Their movement feels unchanged. Yet humans now watch them with greater attention. Patterns feel useful. Certain stars appear when rain follows. Others mark heat. Observation becomes anticipation. Perhaps this is where regulation begins invisibly. Not enforced, not declared, but inferred. When births rise after abundance, people notice. When scarcity follows growth, memory links. Events, cause and effect, feel learned rather than immediate. Silence changes character. Nights are no longer empty pauses between journeys. They become shared intervals of rest. Fires burn longer. Conversation extends. Plans are discussed quietly. The future enters thought more often. With permanence come new challenges. Waste accumulates. Disease spreads more easily. Conflict intensifies when movement becomes costly. These pressures demand coordination. Decisions now affect many rather than few. Authority begins forming naturally around experience. Archaeological layers from this period grow thicker. More tools appear. More debris remains. Evidence of repeated occupation becomes clear. Structures remain modest, but they persist. Permanence exists lightly, yet unmistakably. Population growth remains moderate. The land still corrects excess eventually, but correction feels harsher. Loss impacts entire groups at once. Recovery takes longer. Miscalculation costs increase. Stars continue, offering steady reference. Cosmic time remains patient. Human time thickens beneath it. Generations compare themselves to past ones. Memory extends backward and forward simultaneously. When you imagine walking through such a settlement, you notice familiarity. Paths feel known, smells linger. Sound reflects off simple walls. These sensory cues create attachment. Leaving becomes harder. Staying feels safer even when strained. Perhaps attachment is the beginning of control. When movement narrows, choice narrows. Staying requires management. Growth must be considered. Storage extends survival artificially. Food saved today feeds tomorrow. This buffer allows population to exceed immediate capacity briefly. Growth accelerates slightly. Risk increases quietly. Silence carries weight differently now. Absence of sound suggests vulnerability rather than peace. Stillness invites thought. Thought invites worry. Anxiety enters life subtly. Elders begin advising more deliberately. Their words carry influence. Memory becomes authority. Decisions affect future more visibly. Responsibility expands. Some scholars believe this phase marks origin of governance. Others see it as natural adaptation. Both perspectives may be true. Systems emerge because they are needed. Unanswered questions remain. Did people sense the shift clearly? Did they mourn lost freedom? Archaeology cannot tell. It records outcome, not feeling. Stars remain indifferent to these changes. They continue shining. Their cycles repeat. Human interpretation grows heavier beneath them. Perhaps this weight creates pressure. When more lives depend on one place, stakes rise. Balance must be protected intentionally. As permanence increases, anxiety about loss deepens. The land no longer feels endlessly forgiving. People seek assurance. They seek pattern. They seek meaning. This search does not yet name gods, but it prepares ground. When environment no longer regulates, immediately something else must fill that role. Ritual begins appearing quietly. Simple acts, seasonal markings, offerings of thanks. These practices restore sense of order symbolically. They reassure. Population regulation remains indirect. But influence grows. Certain unions are encouraged. Certain times avoided. Behaviour adjusts through custom. Environmental signals grow harder to read. Human activity masks them. Waste alters soil. Smoke changes air. Noise obscures subtle cues. Feedback weakens further. Population pressure reveals itself slowly. Crowding increases illness. Competition intensifies. Conflict arises more often. These challenges demand coordination beyond instinct. The Earth continues regulating eventually. Floods still arrive. Drought still returns. But impact now spreads wider. Loss feels catastrophic rather than corrective. This amplifies desire for protection, for explanation, for authority beyond environment. Perhaps this is the final threshold, the moment before belief formalizes, before oversight gains name, before gods take shape. The land still speaks, but humans listen less closely. They listen instead to memory, to structure, to emerging systems. Balance no longer feels automatic. It feels fragile. It must be maintained. As this section closes, the forgotten world is fully gone. Balance no longer belongs to Earth alone. It requires mediation. In the next movement, we'll watch humans begin recording life itself, counting, listing, preserving presence beyond memory. This is where preparation truly begins. The clay feels cool in the hand when lifted from the riverbank. It bends easily. It holds shape briefly. When pressed with a reed, it accepts impression without resistance. When you imagine this moment, it feels ordinary. No ceremony, no announcement, just material responding to touch. Yet this simple act begins something irreversible. Memory no longer relies on voice alone. Presence can now be fixed. What was once fleeting begins to stay. Long before myths speak of gods directing humanity, people begin directing resources. In the fertile plains of southern Mesopotamia around the late 4th millennium BCE, small clay tablets appear. They do not tell stories. They do not praise gods. They list quantities, grain amounts, livestock numbers, labour assignments. These marks represent need. They represent survival stretched across time. Perhaps the most important change is subtle. People themselves enter the record. Names appear. Households are listed, dependents counted, children noted quietly. Birth becomes visible beyond the family. Life enters administration. When presence is written, it can be referenced. When referenced, it can be planned. Archaeologists uncover these tablets stacked in rooms. Some stored carefully, others discarded once obsolete. Light reveals wedge-shaped impressions made deliberately. Each mark equals something tangible. A ration, a worker, a mouth to feed. There is no emotion in these records, only structure, only clarity. When counting begins balance, shifts. Memory no longer fades naturally. It persists. Decisions rely on record rather than recollection. Authority gains permanence. The person who controls the tablet controls allocation. Power concentrates quietly. Stars still move overhead unchanged. Cosmic time continues its slow rhythm, yet human time accelerates beneath it. The past becomes accessible instantly through record. The future becomes subject to planning. This compression alters perception deeply. Perhaps this is where regulation becomes possible. When births are counted, their impact is known. When households grow, allocation changes. When allocation matters, behaviour adjusts. No decree is necessary. Awareness itself influences choice. Some scholars believe these records simply reflect growing complexity. Others suggest they mark first step towards social control. Both interpretations may coexist. Administration solves problems. It also creates leverage. Sensory details ground this shift. The sound of stylus scraping, clay, the smell of damp earth in storage rooms, sunlight warming tablets as they dry. These sensations normalize record keeping. What begins as tool becomes routine. When population grows, records expand. When scarcity threatens, records tighten. Distribution follows structure. Those outside record become vulnerable. Inclusion matters. Presence must be acknowledged to be supported. Unanswered questions remain. Who decided which lives were recorded? Who remained invisible? Archaeology preserves pattern, not intention. As writing spreads rapidly across sites, knowledge transfers quickly. Administration becomes shared language. Population management enters collective practice without debate. Stars continue witnessing patiently. The sky does not intervene. Yet human systems now mediate survival. Balance begins shifting from environment towards structure. Perhaps this is the first preparation, not for departure yet, but for separation. Humans begin relying less on Earth alone. They rely on systems they create. As this section settles, the transformation feels quiet but profound. Life has been counted, and once counted, it will never again feel entirely free. The room is cool and enclosed. Air rests without movement. Dust lies undisturbed as if waiting. When you imagine stepping inside this space, your breath slows naturally. Light enters carefully and reveals shelves collapsed inward. Clay tablets lie where hands placed them long ago. Nothing here feels accidental. This is not discard. This is intention. Memory was meant to remain. Long before myths speak of gods arriving from the sky, archaeologists uncover evidence of human systems turning toward belief. In cities like Uruk and Nippur during the late 4th millennium BCE, rooms appear filled with tablets unlike earlier ones. These records still count grain and labour, but they also name temples, they reference cycles, they connect people to unseen order. Perhaps this is where administration begins seeking meaning. When systems grow complex, they search for explanation. When authority concentrates, it seeks legitimacy. Divine framing provides both. The Anunnaki do not yet appear as dramatic beings. They appear as principles, as overseers of balance written quietly into record. When clay tablets list households beside offerings, something subtle happens. Survival and belief merge. Birth is no longer only biological, it becomes symbolic. Increase suggests favour, decline suggests imbalance, meaning attaches to number. Population becomes something watched rather than simply experienced. Sensory detail anchors this shift firmly. The sound of reed stylus scraping clay repeats endlessly. Fingers press impressions carefully. The smell of damp earth fills storage rooms. Sunlight warms tablets as they dry. These acts feel ordinary, yet they reshape reality. When records persist, authority persists. Decisions made today influence tomorrow directly. Memory no longer fades naturally. It can be referenced, corrected, enforced. The person who controls record controls flow. Power concentrates without announcement. Stars continue moving overhead unchanged. Cosmic time remains vast and patient. Yet human time compresses beneath it. The past becomes instantly accessible. The future becomes planned. This compression alters perception deeply. Perhaps this is the first true preparation. Not for departure yet, but for distance. Humans rely less on Earth alone. They rely on systems they create. Balance begins shifting away from immediate environment towards structured oversight. Archaeological evidence supports this transition clearly. Early pictographic tablets evolve into standardized script. Language itself becomes tool of administration. Population can be measured across generations. Names persist beyond death. Presence extends. Some scholars believe these changes reflect simple efficiency. Others suggest intentional population management. Perhaps fertility rituals aligned births with resource cycles. Perhaps restraint was encouraged subtly. Evidence allows multiple readings. Silence plays new role here. Quiet rooms hold power. Stillness surrounds record keeping. Decisions happen without spectacle. Control feels gentle, almost invisible. When belief enters administration, resistance softens. Authority framed as cosmic order invites acceptance. Limits feel protective rather than restrictive. Compliance becomes reverence rather than obedience. Unanswered questions remain. Did people understand demographic impact consciously? Did priests observe patterns deliberately? Archaeology shows correlation, not intention. What becomes clear is direction. Oversight emerges gradually. Balance is no longer automatic. It is maintained, watched, interpreted. Stars remain constant witnesses. Their cycles reinforce order below. The sky legitimizes the ground. Cosmic alignment mirrors social structure. Perhaps this alignment makes control feel natural. When heaven and earth agree, questioning fades. Systems stabilize. This moment does not feel dramatic. It feels administrative, quiet. Yet it reshapes humanity permanently. As this section settles, we sense threshold crossed. Records now look upward. Oversight gains meaning. Authority gains story. In the next movement, belief will fully inhabit daily life. Regulation will feel like care, and balance will become sacred. The city rests beneath a sky that feels familiar now, not just observed but trusted. When you imagine standing among these streets, you sense order without hearing command. Movement follows expectation. Choices feel guided rather than forced. Balance no longer belongs only to land or record. It belongs to meaning shared quietly. Long before gods are carved in towering relief, they settle into routine. Their names are spoken softly in homes. Symbols rest near sleeping places. Small offerings accompany ordinary acts. Fertility and restraint share language. Birth is welcomed. Excess is feared. Continuity becomes responsibility. Perhaps this is where the Anunnaki fully enter daily life, not as visitors but as explanations that grow alongside systems. When population rises, stories emphasize measure. When decline appears, stories emphasize restoration. The gods do not punish loudly. They correct gently through narrative. Archaeological traces support this integration. Domestic shrines appear near hearths. Figurines linked to order and oversight are found in ordinary rooms. These are not distant temple gods alone. They live among people symbolically. Belief becomes intimate and habitual. When ritual aligns with celestial cycle, behavior follows rhythm naturally. Certain nights invite union, others invite restraint, not by law but by custom. Population responds gradually. Growth slows or accelerates without decree. Regulation becomes cultural reflex. Stars guide this rhythm patiently. The moon marks cycles of permission and pause. Constellations return predictably. The sky reinforces pattern, cosmic. Order feels present in the smallest choices. Perhaps this makes regulation feel compassionate. Control framed as care invites acceptance. Limits feel protective rather than restrictive. People comply because balance preserves life. Silence deepens during ritual moments. A pause before offering. A stillness after chant. Quiet allows belief to settle. No argument intrudes. Meaning absorbs doubt. Unanswered questions remain. Did anyone resist quietly? Did alternative beliefs exist? Archaeology rarely preserves dissent. It preserves structure. What is visible is effectiveness. Population remains within capacity for long periods. Cities flourish. Scarcity is managed. Growth does not overwhelm resources immediately. The system works, yet effectiveness carries cost. When belief regulates behavior, individuality narrows. Choice becomes framed by expectation. Freedom yields to harmony. Most accept this willingly. Daily life reflects this calm authority. Imagine a household at dawn. Bread is prepared. Offerings placed briefly. Work begins without instruction. Each person knows role. Oversight is invisible. Stars fade as morning rises. Their presence lingers in memory. Calendars align labour with sky. Timing feels sacred. Productivity follows pattern. Technological skill advances quietly. Irrigation improves. Storage expands. Craft specialization deepens. Innovation serves stability, not expansion. Perhaps restraint preserves balance. Growth is not goal. Continuity is. Expansion beyond capacity is avoided culturally. Stories warn gently. Myths remind without threat. Art from this period reflects order. Figures appear composed. Proportions repeat. Symbolism emphasizes harmony. Chaos is subdued. Silence holds value. Quiet nights reassure rather than unsettle. People sleep trusting systems will hold. Some scholars believe belief replaced fear as regulator. Others suggest belief masked control. Both views may coexist. Stars continue watching patiently. Cosmic time remains vast. Human time aligns beneath it. As this section settles, balance feels complete. Sacred oversight replaces environmental immediacy. The Anunnaki stand quietly between humanity and consequence. Yet even perfect order carries fragility. Beneath calm certainty, small tensions rest unseen. In the next movement, we will look deeper beneath this harmony, toward hidden dimensions, toward alignments and symbols, toward signs that balance maintained intentionally cannot remain unchanged forever. The city awakens beneath a sky that feels settled and familiar. Light spreads slowly across mud brick walls and open courtyards. When you imagine standing here, the air feels calm and practiced. Nothing rushes, nothing surprises. Movement follows paths shaped by long memory. Balance seems present in every gesture and pause. Long before decline is imagined, this period feels complete. Water flows through channels maintained carefully. Grain arrives as expected. Labour follows rhythm rather than urgency. Children grow within boundaries already understood. Elders speak with quiet authority earned through years of observation. Life feels measured rather than forced. Perhaps this is why later generations remember this age as golden. Systems appear to work. Population remains steady. Resources match need. Conflict exists but resolves within structure. The Anunnaki are thanked rather than feared. Oversight feels protective rather than heavy. Daily life reflects this harmony gently. Imagine a household at first light. Bread is prepared without haste. An offering is placed briefly near the doorway. Work begins naturally. No overseer watches. Belief guides behaviour invisibly. Order lives inside routine. Stars still fade as morning arrives. Their presence lingers in memory. The sky remains reference even in daylight. Calendars align planting and harvest with celestial cycles. Timing feels sacred. Productivity follows pattern rather than demand. Technological skill advances quietly during this age. Irrigation improves through careful observation. Storage expands gradually. Craft specialization deepens. None of this feels revolutionary. Progress unfolds patiently. Innovation serves stability rather than expansion. Perhaps restraint is the key to balance here. Growth is not the goal, continuity is. Expansion beyond capacity is avoided culturally. Stories warn gently against excess. Myths remind without threat. Harmony is praised more than ambition. Art from this period reflects order clearly. Figures appear composed. Proportions repeat with intention. Symbols emphasize balance and continuity. Chaos appears only as cautionary image. The unseen world feels aligned with the visible one. Silence holds value in this age. Not emptiness, but reassurance. Quiet nights confirm order. Stillness feels safe. People sleep trusting that systems will hold. Anxiety remains low. Predictability comforts. Unanswered questions remain beneath this calm. Did anyone feel constrained by limits? Did ambition press quietly against boundaries? Archaeology records success more than doubt. Silence may hide tension. Stars continue watching patiently. Cosmic time remains vast and indifferent. Human time feels aligned beneath it. Generations trust the pattern they inherit. As you imagine walking through these streets, you notice familiarity everywhere. Smells linger pleasantly. Sound reflects softly. Paths feel known. This familiarity strengthens attachment. Leaving becomes unthinkable for most. Staying feels secure. Perhaps attachment itself carries risk. When identity binds to structure, flexibility weakens. Balance becomes dependent on maintenance. Any disruption threatens more. Ritual reinforces this attachment. Festivals repeat yearly. Offerings align with celestial moments. Community gathers predictably. Shared belief strengthens cohesion. Regulation feels communal rather than imposed. Population remains stable through these practices. Births align with favourable cycles. Restraint is praised during uncertain times. Growth responds to meaning rather than impulse. Balance holds. Some scholars view this as peak human adaptation. Others see it as calm before strain. Both perspectives may be true simultaneously. Perfection often contains hidden fragility. Environmental signals still matter, but are filtered through system. Floods and droughts are interpreted symbolically. Response follows ritual as much as action. Confidence remains high. The Anunnaki at this stage function as guardians of order, not tyrants, not rulers, symbols of balance itself. Their presence reassures rather than commands. Silence deepens during sacred moments, a pause before offering, a stillness after chant. These quiet spaces reinforce trust. Doubt dissolves gently. Yet beneath this harmony, change prepares quietly. Population edges upward slowly. Resources stretch slightly. Complexity increases. Maintenance requires more effort. Stars remain unchanged. Their constancy contrasts human delicacy. Cosmic time continues patiently while systems below work harder to preserve balance. As this section settles, we sense the peak clearly. Order feels complete. Balance feels achieved. The golden age rests in confidence. But beneath calm certainty, something unseen begins to stir. In the next movement, we will explore hidden dimensions, alignments beneath stone, symbols beneath story, tensions beneath perfection. Imagine a single day unfolding beneath a sky already known by heart. Dawn arrives softly without urgency. Pale light touches rooftops and courtyards in angles remembered instinctively. When you stand here in your mind, the air feels calm and deliberate. Nothing begins by accident. The day already has shape before the first movement. Long before midday heat, a household wakes together. Not because a voice commands them, because the sky has signalled alignment through pattern. The moon has passed a familiar point. A certain star faded just before dawn. Today is permitted. Today is balanced. The father rises first and prepares tools slowly. The mother sets grain aside with care learned over years. A small offering rests near the doorway. No ceremony surrounds it. Only habit. It is understood that abundance flows when balance is honoured. Children watch quietly and absorb meaning without instruction. Perhaps this is how regulation feels most natural. No counting aloud. No visible enforcement. Behaviour follows belief effortlessly. Births are welcomed when signs align. Delay is accepted when they do not. The Anunnaki are not present as figures. They exist as rhythm guiding choice. As the sun lifts higher, work begins across the settlement. Fields are tended with practiced movement. Canals are checked calmly. Labour follows routine shaped by memory rather than demand. There is no sense of urgency. Food will arrive. It always has. Stability has become expectation. Stars still linger faintly in memory even as daylight grows. Their patterns guide timing invisibly. Calendars live inside people now. They do not need to be consulted openly. The sky has been internalized. At midday, elders gather briefly in shade. They speak quietly of the coming season, of signs observed over recent nights, of restraint advised if certain patterns persist. Their tone carries no fear, only continuity. Advice flows without force. Silence surrounds these moments. Stillness holds weight. No one interrupts. Listening feels respectful rather than required. Meaning settles gently. Perhaps this is why resistance feels unnecessary. Authority is not external. It is shared understanding. Limits feel protective. Growth feels safe only within rhythm. In the afternoon, craft work continues. Pottery forms beneath steady hands. Textiles take shape slowly. Specialization exists but remains modest. No one works to expand endlessly. Each task serves continuity. Children play nearby under watchful calm. Their laughter carries but does not disrupt. They are future but also present. Their existence is part of balance already considered. As evening approaches, preparation begins again. Food is shared. Portions feel sufficient. Excess is avoided naturally. Waste is discouraged by custom rather than rule. Stars begin returning gradually. One by one they appear in positions expected. The sky confirms the day. Alignment remains intact. People feel reassurance rather than excitement. Ritual follows quietly, not dramatic. A brief pause, a shared gesture, a chant spoken softly. These acts reaffirm trust. They reinforce order. Perhaps this repetition is what makes control invisible. When behaviour aligns with belief, regulation dissolves into habit. Choice feels free because boundaries are internal. Unanswered questions linger beyond this day. Did anyone ever doubt? Did anyone feel constrained? Archaeology preserves routine, not feeling. What is clear is effectiveness. Population remains stable across generations. Growth responds to signal rather than impulse. Scarcity is anticipated rather than endured. Night deepens, fires glow faintly, conversation softens. Sleep arrives easily, people rest. Trusting pattern will hold tomorrow as well. Stars continue their slow movement overhead. Cosmic time remains vast and indifferent. Human life feels small yet complete beneath it. Perhaps this is why later memory idealizes this age, not for power, not for expansion, but for peace. Yet peace maintained through alignment carries fragility. When conditions change, adaptation must follow. Belief must shift or strain appears. As this section closes, the day fades gently. Wind moves through narrow streets. Stone holds warmth briefly, then cools. Silence settles again. In the next movement, we will begin looking beneath this calm surface, toward symbols carved deeper, toward alignments beneath stone, toward the hidden dimensions that supported this balance and quietly prepared it for change. The stone feels cool even after long sun. When you imagine touching it, your palm senses patience stored within surface. Shadows move slowly along carved edges. Nothing here feels rushed. The city holds breath. Beneath ordinary pathways, deeper meanings wait quietly. Long before modern excavation, people shaped stone with intention beyond shelter. Walls align subtly. Doorways face certain horizons. Steps rise in measured sequence. These choices repeat across sites. Patterns suggest purpose. Purpose suggests observation carried across generations. Perhaps builders watched the sky closely while laying foundations. When certain stars reached precise positions, construction paused. When the moon completed cycles, work resumed. Time itself became material. Architecture absorbed rhythm. Stone recorded sky. Archaeological surveys reveal alignments that appear deliberate. Temple platforms face solstice points. Corridors frame rising constellations. Light enters chambers at specific times only. These effects require patience and knowledge. They do not happen accidentally. Sensory experience confirms this intention. At dawn, light slides along stone, revealing symbols briefly. At dusk, shadows soften carvings until they disappear. Silence amplifies awareness. Stillness invites attention upward. Stars play central role here. Their repetition offers reliability. Their distance offers authority. By aligning structures to sky, humans anchor order physically. The heavens legitimize what the ground enforces. Perhaps these alignments reinforce regulation subtly. When sacred spaces mirror cosmic cycles, behavior aligns naturally. Certain gatherings occur only when stars permit. Certain acts wait. Restraint becomes ritualized. Hidden chambers deepen this impression. Beneath floors, archaeologists find sealed rooms. Offerings placed deliberately. Bones arranged carefully. Objects hidden rather than displayed. Secrecy holds power. Some scholars suggest these spaces served initiatory purpose. Others believe they stored ritual knowledge. Perhaps both views hold truth. Hidden knowledge often stabilizes systems. Silence dominates these underground spaces. Sound dampens quickly. Light fades. Stillness presses inward. Presence feels watched, though nothing moves. Stone becomes witness. Symbols carved here differ from domestic art. They emphasize order, circles repeat, lines align, figures hold balanced posture. Chaos appears bound. Perhaps these images taught through repetition. They shaped thought visually. They reinforced limits without words. Unanswered questions remain. Were these alignments understood widely or guarded closely? Archaeology reveals structure, not access. What becomes clear is depth. Regulation does not rely only on belief or record. It embeds itself in space, in movement, in light. Stars continue overhead unchanged, yet their influence reaches ground through stone. Cosmic order becomes architectural. As this section settles, we sense how deeply balance was engineered. Not imposed suddenly, layered patiently, beneath stone and sky, alike. In the next movement, we will explore technologies that supported this balance. Techniques that appear simple yet reveal unexpected sophistication. Methods that continue puzzling observers today. The tools appear simple when first seen. Clay bowls rest in rows. Reed mats lie folded near walls. Stone weights sit where they were placed deliberately. When you imagine holding these objects, they feel familiar and unremarkable. Yet familiarity hides patience. These tools are shaped by generations of watching and adjusting. They exist not to conquer nature, but to cooperate with it. Their purpose is not speed. Their purpose is balance. Long before complex machines emerge, communities refine processes slowly. Irrigation channels curve gently rather than cutting straight. Water is guided rather than forced. Gates open and close at moments learned through observation. Flow remains steady. Fields drink without flooding. Soil absorbs without eroding. This careful relationship sustains land, quietly across seasons. Perhaps this is why these systems endure for centuries. They listen to the land. They respond rather than dominate. Excess is avoided naturally. Efficiency is measured by reliability, not yield. Crops grow predictably. Soil recovers patiently. Harvest follows rhythm instead of urgency. Stability becomes the metric of success. Storage technologies reveal similar restraint. Granaries rise slightly above ground to allow air movement beneath. Walls are thick but breathable. Moisture escapes gradually. Heat disperses slowly. Grain rests protected without being sealed aggressively. Loss is minimized without hoarding. Food lasts across seasons without encouraging unchecked growth. Sensory experience confirms this care. Cool air greets you inside storage rooms. The dry scent of grain lingers softly. Sound dampens quickly. Movement feels measured. Stillness dominates. These spaces teach patience through atmosphere alone. Population stability depends on these quiet successes. When food persists, planning becomes possible. When planning exists, growth can be moderated gently. Technology becomes regulator without command. It shapes behavior indirectly through capacity. Stars continue guiding timing from above. Certain maintenance tasks align with celestial cycles. Canals are cleared when familiar constellations return. Storage is inspected during specific lunar phases. The sky continues shaping practice invisibly. Cosmic rhythm reinforces earthly routine. Perhaps this alignment prevents overuse. When action ties to time, restraint follows naturally. Technology obeys rhythm rather than impulse. Work pauses when sky suggests pause. Activity resumes when signs align. Balance holds. Craft specialization supports continuity further. Potters shape vessels to consistent sizes. Measures repeat precisely. Distribution remains fair. Excess accumulation becomes visible immediately. Uniformity reinforces moderation. Variation remains limited intentionally. Archaeologists observe remarkable consistency across sites separated by distance. Tool dimensions repeat. Channel widths match closely. Construction angles align. Knowledge travels through habit rather than instruction. Standardization stabilizes population management quietly. Unanswered questions remain. Were these standards enforced deliberately, or did tradition guide them naturally? Evidence suggests habit rather than decree. Practice teaches more effectively than rule. Silence plays an important role within these systems. Workshops operate without urgency. Movements are practiced and smooth. Tools pass hand to hand without noise excess. Efficiency feels calm. Stillness surrounds labour. Focus deepens. Perhaps this calm hides complexity. Systems work because everyone understands limits intuitively. Innovation occurs within boundaries. Change is incremental rather than disruptive. Stability absorbs improvement without shock. Technology also shapes intimacy subtly. Birth spacing aligns with workload cycles. Family size reflects capacity to contribute. These decisions feel practical rather than moral. Regulation happens through necessity rather than command. Some scholars argue this reflects unconscious population control. Others see cultural adaptation shaped by environment. Both interpretations coexist. Evidence supports neither fully alone. Stone tools and clay vessels may appear humble, yet they hold society together. They enable balance across generations. They preserve continuity without authority. Water management demonstrates this most clearly. Channels are repaired collectively. Responsibility rotates. No single person controls flow permanently. Cooperation maintains fairness. Conflict remains low. The rhythm of maintenance creates shared purpose. People gather seasonally to clear silt. Work feels ritualistic. Participation reinforces belonging. Population remains integrated rather than fragmented. Even waste management reflects restraint. Refuse is placed deliberately away from dwellings. Decomposition returns nutrients slowly. Nothing accumulates unchecked. Cleanliness supports health without obsession. Stars remain patient witnesses above all this. Their cycles continue regardless of human effort. Yet their predictability comforts. When systems strain, people look upward again. Alignment restores confidence. Tools age gracefully. Bowls crack and are replaced. Mats fray and are rewoven. Nothing is expected to last forever. Replacement feels natural. Impermanence is accepted. Perhaps this acceptance prevents excess accumulation. When objects are temporary, hoarding loses meaning. Ownership remains practical rather than symbolic. Technology here does not create surplus for power. It creates sufficiency for continuity. That distinction matters deeply. It keeps ambition measured. Environmental feedback still operates. Floods occur, drought arrives, but systems soften impact. Recovery remains possible. Catastrophe is rare. The Anunnaki, during this phase, are associated with order rather than invention. They do not bring machines. They embody balance. Technology reflects their principles rather than their intervention. Stories describe gods approving practices rather than creating them. This reinforces legitimacy. Human systems feel divinely aligned without external enforcement. Perhaps this alignment makes departure possible later. When systems function independently, oversight becomes unnecessary. Preparation begins quietly. As this section settles, we recognize sophistication hidden within simplicity. Quiet technologies sustain life without spectacle. They regulate population without force. They maintain balance through cooperation. Stone remembers this patience. Clay holds its imprint. Water follows channels shaped by care. Stars continue above, unchanged. In the next movement, we will explore how these systems become encoded in story. How myth carries regulation gently. How narrative replaces mechanism when memory deepens. Silence lingers as these thoughts rest. The stone appears ordinary until you remain with it patiently. When you imagine standing beside these walls, your hand feels cool surface storing long memory. Light moves slowly across carvings, revealing patterns briefly before shadow returns. Nothing announces itself loudly. Meaning waits beneath attention. This is a world built to be noticed gradually. Long before modern observers measure angles or map alignments, ancient builders embed intention quietly. Walls face horizons with care. Doorways open towards specific risings. Steps follow measured progression. These choices repeat across regions and generations. Pattern suggests knowledge preserved without explanation. Structure becomes teaching. Perhaps these alignments serve more than beauty. When architecture mirrors sky behavior moves with rhythm. Certain spaces invite gathering only at specific times. Others remain unused until stars return to position. Access becomes regulation, without instruction. Archaeological surveys reveal corridors framing solstice light precisely. Platforms catch first rays on appointed days. Interior chambers remain dark except during rare moments. These effects require patience and shared memory. They do not occur by chance. Sensory experience deepens understanding. At dawn, light slides along stone edges gently. At dusk, shadows erase symbols slowly. Silence amplifies awareness. Stillness invites upward gaze. The environment itself becomes guide. Stars play central role here. Their repetition offers reliability. Their distance grants authority. By anchoring structures to sky humans externalize order. The heavens legitimize ground decisions without words. Perhaps this design reinforces population rhythms subtly. When sacred spaces open only during aligned periods, intimacy concentrates. When they close, restraint follows naturally. Fertility responds to access. Balance emerges through space and time. Hidden chambers strengthen this. Impression. Beneath floors, archaeologists find sealed rooms untouched for centuries. Offerings placed carefully, bones arranged deliberately, objects hidden rather than displayed. Secrecy holds power, knowledge remains protected. Some scholars suggest initiatory function. Others believe storage of ritual memory. Perhaps both interpretations overlap. Hidden knowledge often stabilizes systems by limiting access. Silence dominates underground spaces. Sound fades quickly. Light diminishes. Stillness presses inward. Presence feels observed though nothing moves. Stone becomes witness rather than wall. Symbols carved here differ from domestic art. Circles repeat. Lines converge. Figures hold balanced posture. Chaos appears bound or enclosed. Meaning favors order consistently. Perhaps these images teach without language. Repetition shapes expectation. Visual rhythm becomes mental rhythm. Limits feel natural. Unanswered questions persist. Who accessed these spaces? How often rituals occurred? Archaeology reveals structure, not schedule. What emerges clearly is depth. Regulation does not rely solely on belief or record. It embeds in movement, in light, in architecture. Space itself instructs. Stars continue overhead unchanged. Yet influence reaches ground through stone. Cosmic order becomes tangible. The sky enters daily life physically. Perhaps this tangibility makes oversight feel gentle. When boundaries of spatial resistance fades, people adapt unconsciously. Time behaves differently within these spaces. Moments stretch. Waiting feels purposeful. Patience becomes virtue reinforced by environment. Ritual pathways guide bodies predictably. Steps slow movement. Turns limit speed. Posture aligns. Behavior conforms without rule. Some scholars view this as advanced social engineering. Others see organic tradition. Both perspectives coexist. Evidence supports careful design regardless of intention. Silence remains key. Quiet allows absorption. Stillness reinforces awe. Awe encourages compliance. The Anunnaki within this dimension appear as guardians of alignment. Not rulers, not creators. Symbols of cosmic agreement. Their presence feels structural. Perhaps this structural presence prepares for absence later. When order is embedded, departure does not collapse system immediately. Stone remembers pattern even when belief fades. Light still enters at appointed times. Sky still aligns. As this section settles, we sense how deeply balance was engineered. Not imposed suddenly, layered patiently. Beneath visible world, hidden orders persist. In the next movement, we will explore how these hidden orders connect to myth directly. How stories encode what stone enacts. How narrative carries regulation when architecture alone cannot. Stillness rests briefly here. The stories begin softly, not as commands, not as laws. They arrive as explanations offered gently beside firelight. When you imagine listening here, your body feels at ease. The tone invites rather than insists. Meaning settles slowly through repetition. This is how guidance lasts. Long before myth is written, it is spoken repeatedly. Elders recount origins with patience. They speak of order emerging from chaos, of balance restored after excess, of cycles honoured and broken. These narratives do not threaten, they remind. Perhaps this is where regulation becomes truly invisible. When rules are carried by story, they feel natural. They enter memory early. They shape expectation before choice arises. Children grow within narrative rather than instruction. The Anunnaki appear in these stories not as conquerors but as stewards. They measure, they weigh, they decide when increase serves harmony and when restraint preserves life. Their actions mirror systems already practiced. Story legitimizes structure. Archaeological fragments preserve echoes of this process. Hymns speak of gods assigning roles. Myths describe limits placed gently after abundance grows too heavy. Language remains calm. Correction feels caring rather than punitive. Sensory detail grounds these narratives. Fire crackles softly. Night air cools skin. Stars shimmer faintly above. Listening becomes embodied. Meaning associates with comfort and safety. Perhaps this context matters most. Regulation taught in warmth is accepted easily. Authority delivered through story avoids resistance. Limits feel protective. Stories repeat seasonally. During planting, during harvest, during drought. Each retelling reinforces lesson. Memory deepens. Behaviour aligns without enforcement. Unanswered questions remain. Were alternative stories told quietly? Did dissent exist? Oral tradition preserves dominant narratives more than competing ones. What survives suggests success. Population remains responsive. Growth slows when stories emphasize caution. Increase follows narratives of blessing. Myth guides timing. Stars play their role again. Many stories reference sky movement. Gods dwell among constellations. Cosmic order frames human order. The heavens confirm narrative truth. Perhaps this celestial framing grants authority permanence. When stories align with sky questioning fades, limits feel universal. Silence punctuates storytelling. Pauses allow reflection. Stillness lets meaning settle. No one rushes conclusion. The Anunnaki here function as memory keepers. They remember balance when humans forget. They restore when excess appears. This framing avoids blame. Responsibility diffuses. Some scholars view these myths as symbolic social contracts. Others see them as genuine belief. Both readings coexist comfortably. Effectiveness matters more than origin. Narrative also provides flexibility. Stories adapt subtly. Emphasis shifts with circumstance. Regulation evolves without formal change. This adaptability preserves stability. When environment alters, stories adjust. Balance remains aim. Perhaps this narrative method prepares for absence. When oversight withdraws, story remains. Guidance persists. Without presence, stone and record may fade. Story lives in people. It moves with them. It survives collapse. As this section settles, we recognize power of gentle teaching. Regulation woven into myth endures quietly. In the next movement, we will turn toward questions that arise later. When systems strain, when stories conflict, when memory and reality diverge. For now, silence returns. Stars continue above. Story rests within breath. The chamber feels different from the spaces above it. Air settles heavier. Sound fades quickly. When you imagine stepping downward, your senses adjust slowly. Light weakens. Time stretches. This place is not meant for passing through casually. It invites pause. It invites care. Meaning rests here deliberately. Long before modern scholars speak of secrecy, ancient societies practice separation of knowledge. Not all understanding moves freely. Some remains reserved. Certain truths are revealed gradually. Others are protected indefinitely. This separation does not feel cruel. It feels stabilizing. Too much knowing at once disrupts balance. Perhaps this is how systems preserve themselves. When knowledge is layered, responsibility follows. Access shapes behavior. Limitation prevents misuse. Power disperses carefully. Archaeological evidence hints at this structure repeatedly. Tablets stored apart from domestic records. Symbols carved only in restricted spaces. Language shifts subtly between public and private texts. Meaning deepens with context. Sensory cues reinforce boundary. Narrow entrances slow movement. Low ceilings alter posture. Darkness focuses attention inward. Silence becomes companion. These physical constraints prepare mind for restraint. Stars remain present even here indirectly. Symbols reference constellations. Myths align with celestial cycles. Cosmic order penetrates depth through representation. Sky reaches underground through story. Perhaps this layered access influences population management subtly. Fertility knowledge, shared selectively. Timing guidance offered through ritual. Understanding spreads slowly, preventing sudden shifts. Balance holds. Some scholars suggest these spaces functioned as schools. Others propose initiation rites. Perhaps both interpretations overlap. Learning itself becomes ritualized. Unanswered questions persist. Who chose recipients? How criteria evolved? Archaeology reveals structure, not policy. What remains clear is intention. Knowledge is treated as force. Force requires containment. Containment preserves harmony. Silence dominates here more fully. Stillness feels active. Waiting becomes lesson. Patience is practiced physically. Objects placed within these chambers carry symbolic weight. Seals mark completion. Layers protect content. Access requires effort. Perhaps effort filters desire. Only those willing to wait receive deeper insight. Regulation begins with self-selection. The Anunnaki within this framework appear as custodians rather than rulers. They guard. Thresholds. They maintain order by pacing revelation. This pacing matters deeply. Sudden understanding disrupts social rhythm. Gradual insight aligns with cosmic time. Learning mirrors stars. Stories reference this separation gently. Gods reveal wisdom when time is right. Impatience leads to imbalance. Patience restores favour. Such narratives teach restraint implicitly. Curiosity is honoured but guided. Limits feel purposeful. Some see control in this, others see care. Both readings coexist. Impact remains stabilising. Population responds indirectly. Knowledge about cycles informs planning, but access remains limited. Behaviour adjusts without widespread instruction. This approach avoids panic. It avoids surge. Change arrives slowly. As centuries pass, these spaces accumulate layers of meaning. Each generation adds without erasing. Continuity deepens. Stone absorbs presence. Footsteps repeat. Silence records breath. Memory embeds. Perhaps this embedding prepares for absence. When guidance withdraws, structure remains. Knowledge sleeps waiting. Stars continue overhead unchanged. Their patience reflects method below. Time aligns across scales. As this section settles, we recognize depth of design. Regulation embedded not only in rule or story, but in access itself. In the next movement, questions arise. When separation creates distance, when hidden knowledge breeds speculation, when balance faces uncertainty. For now, stillness holds. Knowledge rests apart. Balance remains intact. The questions do not arrive suddenly. They drift in slowly like evening air. When you imagine standing at this point in time, you feel calm yet aware. Systems still hold. Stories still guide. But something subtle presses against certainty. Thought lingers longer than before. Silence invites wondering rather than rest. Long after balance becomes routine, people begin noticing inconsistencies. Seasons shift slightly. Population responds unevenly. Ritual timing no longer aligns perfectly with outcome. Small deviations appear. Nothing breaks, but perfection softens. Minds begin asking gently why. Perhaps this is natural when systems mature. Stability allows reflection. When survival feels secure, curiosity awakens. People wonder whether oversight is permanent or conditional. They wonder how much choice truly exists. Some scholars believe these questions emerge as population approaches limits again. Others suggest cultural memory of earlier freedom resurfaces. Both possibilities coexist quietly. Stars continue overhead unchanged. Their constancy contrasts growing uncertainty below. The sky still offers pattern. Yet interpretation varies. One sign means blessing to some and warning to others. Agreement weakens. Stories begin shifting emphasis. Where once balance was assured, now caution appears. Myths mention times when gods withdraw. Tales warn of excess unchecked. Narrative adapts to doubt. Unanswered questions multiply. Did the Anunnaki choose who could reproduce? Intentionally. Or did systems merely guide behaviour indirectly? Archaeology cannot resolve intention. Perhaps population control never required decision. Perhaps belief shaped outcome unconsciously. Or perhaps guidance was deliberate but gentle. All interpretations remain possible. Silence holds these questions without urgency. Stillness allows them to exist without demand for answer. Wonder feels safe. When elders speak now, they include uncertainty. Advice becomes conditional. Observation replaces assurance. Authority softens. Some believe this marks beginning of decline. Others see evolution toward autonomy. Both readings carry weight. Technology continues functioning. Architecture remains aligned. Knowledge stays layered. Yet trust shifts subtly. Reliance on oversight becomes awareness of its limits. Stars remain patient witnesses. Cosmic time does not respond to doubt. It continues. People look inward more often. Reflection deepens. Choice feels heavier. Responsibility grows. Perhaps this growth prepares humanity for change. When guidance fades, questions must replace certainty. As this section settles, the questions remain unanswered. They do not disturb sleep. They accompany it gently. In the next movement, we'll face greater uncertainty, where answers fragment, where multiple explanations coexist, where mystery itself becomes teacher. For now, the questions rest quietly. Stillness holds them. The change does not arrive with sound or sign. It enters slowly like cooler air at dusk. When you imagine this moment, you feel it first in the body rather than the mind. Certainty loosens its grip gently, not into fear, into space. Systems still function, rituals still repeat, stories are still told, yet something subtle has shifted. Meaning no longer flows from a single source. Responsibility begins settling inward. Long after balance feels established, people notice they are choosing more often. Not dramatically, quietly. Decisions that once followed ritual automatically now require reflection. Timing feels less certain. Alignment feels interpretive. People pause longer before acting. Thought lingers. Silence carries weight differently. Stars continue overhead unchanged. Their paths remain steady and indifferent, yet interpretation beneath them multiplies. One constellation reassures, another unsettles. The same sky produces different meanings depending on who looks upward. Unity softens without collapsing. Perhaps this is what happens when oversight recedes. Some scholars believe the Anunnaki withdrew deliberately after systems stabilized. Others suggest humans simply matured beyond need for guidance. A few imagine the gods were never external at all. That belief itself carried regulation. Evidence allows each view to rest without resolution. What becomes clear is multiplicity. There is no longer one explanation accepted everywhere. Some households hold tightly to ritual. Others adapt flexibly. Some elders insist alignment remains essential. Others emphasize personal judgment. Diversity grows quietly. Silence becomes reflective rather than reassuring. Stillness invites questioning. People sit with uncertainty longer. Sleep arrives with thought rather than trust. Dreams grow vivid. Inner worlds expand. Technology continues evolving. Irrigation systems adjust. Storage methods refine. Innovation accelerates slightly. Change becomes tool rather than threat. Autonomy increases. Perhaps this autonomy marks preparation. When guidance fades, self-regulation must replace it. Balance must be chosen rather than received. Responsibility grows heavier yet also more personal. Stories shift tone. Gods appear less frequently. Their interventions diminish. Humans act more. Myth reflects transition gently. Narratives speak of times when gods stepped back. When humans carried order forward alone, unanswered questions deepen. Did population remain moderated through memory alone? Did stories continue shaping behaviour unconsciously? Or did limits erode gradually, leading to strain? Archaeology shows outcomes, not intentions. Some scholars connect this phase with similar transitions elsewhere. Cultures across regions experience moments when divine oversight recedes. Autonomy rises, pattern repeats. Human development follows familiar arcs. Stars remain patient witnesses. Cosmic time continues unhurried. It allows many answers to coexist. It does not require consensus. Choice now feels heavier. Freedom feels real. Mistakes become possible. Growth can exceed balance. Correction becomes harsher. Consequence returns more visibly. Perhaps this return of consequence mirrors the forgotten world earlier, but context differs. Memory now exists, structure remains. Choice operates within legacy. Silence plays crucial role here. Quiet allows reflection. Stillness permits recalibration. Without noise, people sense imbalance earlier. Awareness replaces obedience. Population patterns shift subtly. Birth timing varies more widely. Family size diverges. Some grow quickly, others remain small. Diversity increases. Balance becomes uneven. Some view this unevenness as failure, others see it as evolution. Evidence supports neither conclusively. Change does not announce value. The Anunnaki in this stage become distant symbols rather than active overseers. Their names persist in ritual language. Their presence fades from daily decision. Memory replaces authority. Perhaps this fading is intentional. When guardians withdraw, systems are tested. What holds reveals what endures. Architecture remains aligned. Stone still catches solstice light. Chambers still open at appointed times, but fewer gather. Meaning becomes optional. Participation becomes choice. Knowledge once kept apart begins spreading. Secrets lose potency. Access broadens. Understanding democratizes slowly. Control loosens further. Silence changes again. It no longer enforces reverence. It hosts contemplation. Quiet spaces fill with thought rather than awe. People begin asking not only how but why. Why align? Why restrain? Why believe? Answers vary. Consensus dissolves gently. We may never know whether this transition was welcomed. Archaeology preserves structure, not feeling. Emotion fades faster than stone. What remains is trajectory. Humanity steps forward without constant oversight. Balance becomes aspiration rather than guarantee. Order requires effort. Stars continue shining. They do not judge, they observe. Perhaps this observation offers comfort. Even when certainty fades, continuity remains. Cosmic time holds human time gently. As this section settles, we accept multiplicity. Many answers exist at once. None demand dominance. Mystery becomes companion rather than problem. Choice returns quietly. Responsibility follows. Balance must be learned again. In the next movement, we will reflect on what endures beyond oversight, how memory survives withdrawal, how legacy carries forward through rediscovery and retelling. For now, stillness returns. Thought slows, breath deepens, stars remain above unchanged. Time continues patiently. Long after guidance fades into story, something quieter persists. When you imagine this later age, you feel continuity rather than absence. Systems still stand, fields still grow, families still gather. The world does not collapse when oversight withdraws. Instead, it carries forward what it has absorbed. Memory settles into habit. Habit becomes legacy. Stone remembers even when belief softens. Walls aligned to sky still catch light at appointed moments. Water still follows channels shaped patiently long ago. Clay tablets rest buried, yet their influence survives through structure they created. Knowledge outlives its keepers through form. Long after the Anunnaki are spoken of only in ritual language, their principles remain embedded. Balance persists not because it is commanded, but because it was learned. Restraint lingers in custom. Timing echoes in practice. Regulation continues without name. Archaeological rediscovery begins thousands of years later quietly. In the 19th century, CE explorers uncover buried cities. They lift tablets carefully. They map ruins slowly. Each discovery feels like listening rather than announcing. Dust falls away. Memory returns fragment by fragment. Scholars read marks pressed into clay. They trace channels through dry land. They notice alignment still working. Light still enters chambers as designed. Stars still rise where builders expected. Continuity reveals itself across vast time. Perhaps this is the most striking legacy. Systems designed for balance survive belief. Architecture continues instructing. Technology continues regulating. Even myth continues shaping language. Guidance outlives guardians. Modern observers debate intention. Some argue population control was deliberate. Others see adaptive culture. Evidence supports complexity rather than certainty. What matters is outcome. Humanity learned to manage itself along. Stretches. Even now, tablets are translated slowly. Meanings shift with context. New interpretations emerge. Understanding deepens without final answer. Mystery remains active rather than resolved. Silence accompanies excavation sites often. Wind moves through broken walls. Stillness settles where life once thrived. These places feel patient. They wait to be understood rather than explained away. Stars above ruins remain unchanged. They watched arrival. They watched balance. They watched withdrawal. They now watch rediscovery. Cosmic time wraps human history gently. Perhaps this continuity comforts modern listeners. Knowing guidance once existed, whether external or internal, suggests humanity can learn again. Balance is not foreign. It is remembered. Stories persist across cultures. Tales of gods who taught and then departed appear worldwide. Patterns repeat. Memory echoes. Oversight myths feel universal. Legacy extends beyond Mesopotamia. Some scholars connect these patterns cross-culturally. Others caution against overreach. Both positions remind us of humility. Knowledge unfolds gradually. What survives most clearly is method, observation, patience, alignment, restraint. These qualities persist independent of belief system. They form backbone of sustainable life. Technology inherited these principles unconsciously. Modern systems echo ancient ones unknowingly. Regulation remains necessary. Balance remains fragile. Even now, debates about population echo ancient concerns. Language changes, context differs, but underlying tension remains. How many lives can land support? How should growth be guided? Questions repeat. Perhaps this repetition reveals legacy more than artifact. Humanity cycles through learning and forgetting. Oversight returns as policy, withdraws into freedom. Balance oscillates. The Anunnaki as figures may fade. Their role transforms. They become symbols of guidance rather than actors. Memory reshapes them gently. Archaeology does not confirm departure scenes. It confirms transition. Oversight dissolves into culture. Control becomes self-regulation. Responsibility transfers. Silence holds this understanding best. Loud claims oversimplify. Stillness allows nuance. Patience honours complexity. Modern researchers continue uncovering layers. New sites appear, new tablets surface. Each adds piece without finishing picture. Mystery remains companion. Stars remain constant reference. They remind us that human systems are temporary. Cosmic order endures. Perspective widens. Perhaps this widening is final gift of the Watchers, teaching humanity to look beyond immediate certainty, to accept cycles, to prepare for change. As this section settles, we recognise continuity rather than ending. Legacy does not close story. It opens reflection. In the final movement, we will return fully to present moment. We will rest within mystery rather than chase conclusion. For now, memory lingers quietly. Balance breathes. Time continues. Stillness holds everything gently. The night has fully settled now. Sound thins gently. Breath slows without instruction. When you notice this moment, you realise nothing is being asked of you anymore. The story has loosened its grip. Time stretches softly. Awareness drifts without direction. Long after questions fall quiet, there is something that remains. Stone does not hurry. Wind does not explain itself. Stars do not demand belief. They simply continue. This continuity does not need interpretation. It exists on its own. Perhaps this is what the ancient world always understood beneath its systems and stories. That guidance may appear and withdraw. That order may be taught and then released. Yet the deeper rhythm never breaks. Earth turns patiently. Sky observes silently. Stillness holds everything together. As you rest now, your body remembers this rhythm instinctively. Muscles soften. Jaw releases. Shoulders settle downward. Breath finds its own pace. You do not need to guide it. You do not need to follow thought. Everything slows naturally. The stars above you tonight are the same stars that watched forgotten cities rise. They watched hands place stone carefully. They watched systems form. They watched guidance fade. They watch now with the same quiet attention. Nothing has changed for them, and nothing needs to. Stone remembers without speaking. Walls crumble slowly, yet memory remains embedded in form. Paths soften under wind. Foundations sink gently into earth. Time does not erase, it transforms. Perhaps this is the comfort hidden beneath history, that nothing truly disappears, it only changes state. Belief becomes story, story becomes symbol, symbol becomes silence, and silence remains. Imagine ruins beneath moonlight. They do not feel abandoned, they feel complete. Wind moves through openings that once held voices. Sand settles where feet once passed. The space is calm. It has finished what it needed to say. Your breath mirrors this calm, in and out, slow, even, unconcerned. Thoughts may still drift across awareness. Let them pass. There is no need to follow. Like clouds, they move on their own. The sky does not chase them. The Anunnaki now rest as memory rather than presence. They do not instruct. They do not command. They simply echo as part of a long human attempt to understand balance. Their role has finished. What remains is what humanity learned. Perhaps that was always the intention, that guidance would one day step aside, that balance would become internal, that rest would return. Stars continue their paths. They do not judge, they do not wait, they simply move. Stone remains cool beneath night air. Even as temperatures shift, it holds its place. Quiet witness, patient companion. Wind carries soft sound across distance. Leaves move. Water flows unseen. Life continues without urgency. Your breathing aligns with this rhythm without effort. No counting, no instruction, just presence. The story does not end sharply. It fades like twilight. Light softens, edges blur. Warmth leaves stone slowly after sunset. Perhaps sleep arrives this way. Gradual, gentle, unannounced. You're safe here. Nothing needs resolving. Nothing is unfinished. The past rests. The future waits quietly. Stars above, stone below, silence between. Everything continues. And as awareness dims further, there is only this steady ongoing moment. Breath moving, night holding, time flowing without concern, stillness. Patience. Rest. The world remains, and you drift quietly into sleep as wind continues moving over forgotten ground, and stars continue watching without needing to say anything more.